Welcome to the Red Bull Theater Podcast, where guests discuss all things classical theater with your host, Nathan Winkelstein.
Hello. This evening's conversation will focus on one of Shakespeare's greatest tragedies, Macbeth, and specifically on one of the most fascinating characters in the canon, Lady Macbeth, and the scene with her husband where she screws his courage to the sticking place. Our guest tonight is a rising star of stage and screen. She has starred in the titular role of Troilus and Cressida in Shakespeare in the Park, as well as numerous other Shakespeare productions and classical shows throughout the country, including, of course, as Lady Macbeth in Red Bull Theater's MAC Beth, the critically acclaimed smash directed by Erica Schmidt that reimagined the famous play as performed by 7 schoolgirls on a grassy knoll. She is also, most importantly, a Red Bull Matador Award winner and all-around Red Bull stalwart. I am thrilled she has taken time to nerd out with me about Shakespeare. She is the playful Ismenia Mendes.
Hi.
Hi. I asked you for an adjective, and you gave me one.
That very playful intro.
Yeah, you are welcome. You are welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Ismenia. How are you?
Of course, I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. I'm always happy to nerd out about Shakespeare, and especially about Lady.
Yes. Well, I cannot wait for this conversation. I loved your performance in our production. I also know how deeply you think about every character you do, and I can't wait to really actually dig into what was going on behind the eyes for you throughout that production and all the time that you think about this character. We're going to jump right into the scene, the scene that we're sort of using as a springing off point for our conversation. I'm going to give the audience a little context, and then we'll jump right in.
Fantastic.
Great. So, at this point in the play, Macbeth has met the famous witches and heard their prophecy that he will be king. He and his wife have plotted killing King Duncan when he comes to visit them this night. But as the king arrives, Macbeth hesitates to do the deed, finding that he has no spurs to prick the sides of his intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. Oh no, what news?
He has almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
No, you not. He has.
We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon.
Was the hope drunk, wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteem'st the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat i' the adage?
Prithee, peace. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none.
What beast wast then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it were smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this.
If we should fail.
We fail. But screw your courage to the sticking place, and will not fail. When Duncan is asleep, whereto the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him, His 2 chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lie, as in a death. What cannot you and I perform upon unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt of our great quell?
We did it!
La da 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 da!
Break out of character and into conversation.
I'm so glad I had to switch over to a script and could not see anything of what was happening in the image.
Oh, there probably wasn't much. It's all great.
Oh.
The
All right.
Yeah, you should be like me and just cover your own face with a
Post-it.
Post-it.
It was totally covered. That was the whole point. All right.
Thank you. That was amazing, Ismenia, and thank you.
You weren't so shabby yourself.
Oh well, I appreciate it. So, okay, I mean, where do you even begin with this character?
Know.
But I guess the question, I guess where we begin is where I think one begins with almost any character, which is why. And so, like, in this scene, we can talk about how we first meet Lady M, but in this scene, Macbeth has just had one of the most famous speeches in the canon, and seems to legitimately reach a point where he doesn't want to do this. It's not really cold feet. He really actually doesn't seem to want to do it.
No, he's like, we're not doing this.
Yeah. And
he says it. Yeah.
Right. And then you push him to do it, and I guess... Why? Why does Lady M feel so strongly that regicide is the right path? Oh, and by the way, audience, speaking of having conversations at the bar, we're both totally drinking. I hope you are at home. It's the only way to talk about Lady M and M.
It's true. I feel like she probably has a few throughout the show too. So
yeah, you need to have wine and wassail.
Absolutely.
So anyway, but so what for you? Why does, at her core, why does Lady M push this so hard?
I mean, it's what the play is about. It's ambition. It's no, Kitty, the whiskey is not for you. Okay. It's ambition. It's also love, and that's one of the things that I really really enjoyed about Erica's interpretation, and how I have a tendency to always play the anger in things because it's fun and sexy, and she really pulled me back from that and really was like, no, like we have to play the love between these people and their relationship and how they prop each other up. And I truly think, and I believe in, and I hope I did it in the storytelling of the show that we put up, I really think that she thinks it's for the best, that she is helping her husband, that she is helping him become all that he can be, and also helping herself in a world where women do not have a lot of say in their lives, where she is going to take control.
So then why, were I to push back, which I will, why, when Macbeth first hears that he will be king, he actually reacts in horror. He reacts negatively. And then he begins to turn. But why is it, do you think that you think that the thing that will make Macbeth happy is kingship? Well, you seem the moment you receive the letter, you're like, oh, let's go. And like, I'm even going to stop being a woman in order to help this go, which is a whole other thing we could talk about. But and so why does Lady M go to this solution as the most loving thing she can provide Macbeth?
I think, in my opinion, I'm sure every woman who plays Lady, or man, or anywhere, all genders who play Lady would have their own interpretation. But I do feel like, for me, you start to delve into the trauma of having lost a child and what is there left to live for. And, Shakespeare really only touches it like that once in the play. And it's really powerful. And I think that Lady doesn't, it's that card that she only plays that once. It's it's that life-changing event that it's like, I think she uses it both as a tactic, but it's also genuine. I think it's both. I think she's constantly like, she's not a villain, right? Like she's not like constantly plotting and manipulating her husband. I think she's genuinely trying to do what's best for both of them. And if that takes some manipulation, she's good. She's down, and maybe she wouldn't call it manipulation, but like, that's what she's doing. And it really, I think it does come out of like a traumatized self and system where it's like, there is no joy, there is no happiness. So this is the thing. This is the witches that they say, like, this is the thing that we're supposed to be. This is what's going to fix everything. The power, this is going to like replace that empty hole.
Yeah. Well, shoot. I was hoping we would disagree. No, I actually agree completely, and I would even push that. Actually, it is brought up more than once. I actually think that just momentarily before this scene, I actually think that if it were done when 'tis done, that the pity like a naked newborn babe striding blast, or heaven's cherubim horsed upon the sightless courage of the air, that bit is to something where, like, the idea of, I mean, we see it in other Shakespeare plays, right? The idea of a child, one has to delve into how the child gets lost, but the idea that if the child were, for example, flawed or handicapped in some way, that back then, one of the ways that was dealt with in some cultures was you put it out into nature. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of the naked newborn babe striding the blast of a baby in a basket being blown away into the wind, I think is a very real image for Macbeth too. So I think it exists for both of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, and just in our production, there was like this whole other added layer of like the teenage girls and their relationship to the text. Because it was like a play within a play kind of a situation. There's like a whole
look at that.
Hi.
Somebody.
How did you approach Lady M differently given the play and the A?
Timing.
Place of this production.
So yeah, so what did that add? You were about to say. Thank you, Buckspath. Great minds.
Well, it allowed us to play with the language in a way that I think maybe if you're really a stickler and doing the whole period thing, you can't. So like we were able to play with that and maybe like slangify it or just kind of be a little looser with it, repeat some words, just like, we were able to add some like modern references and things. So that was great. I think it also just added this whole other layer of like, okay, so for me, for my teenage girl who is playing Lady, her name is Maria. And we all had our backstories for like who those girls were, why they were there. And it just adds a different way that you can relate to the other people, the other characters, because you're not only relating to them as their character, but them as the girl that you were just in English class with. Right. Who maybe like annoyed the fuck out of you, or like, oops, am I allowed to curse on this?
Sure.
Okay, cool. But
we're a cutting edge, edgy Shakespeare company off Broadway.
We're talking about Macbeth. It's not exactly the most child friendly show.
We'll put a content warning out.
Yeah. So that was really cool too. That like, we had our characters outside of the characters to relate to. And in an instance like this, that we were specifically just talking about the loss of the child, I was able to play with Maria having had an abortion as a teenager, and what her relationship to her womb, to that experience, and how that's channeled out through those lines and through Lady. And that I think that was an opportunity offered to all of the actors in the play, in that particular production, because it was this really cool way to channel a different character's traumas through a whole other character's traumas and how we learn through them. So it was kind of fantastic.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I mean, it seems. I don't know why it sometimes feels easier, I think, when we add that additional layer, because of course you could give Lady M that trauma. Mm-hmm. Which I think is basically what you're implying you did.
But I think when you have a teenage girl from this period playing that, it modernizes it in a way and makes it more relatable to younger audiences. And I think that's what I really loved about this production. It was that I've done a fair amount of Shakespeare, and I've never seen the amount of young people that I saw coming to see our show. Like, just more than half the audience, just like college students, high school students, and they would come back like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Like it was so moving, and I think that's what Erica's production did. It made Shakespeare more accessible, not by dumbing it down, but just by making it more relatable.
Yeah, there was an accessibility. I think there's lessons to be learned for any Shakespeare production here. There was an accessibility in, I think that when we force ourselves to look at something through a lens while also respecting the thing we're looking through the lens, it forces us to be very clear. I think that there is a version of adaptation of Shakespeare that is designed to obfuscate the language, designed to hide the language. And there is, of which I will not give examples. And there is, and there are other versions of adaptations of Shakespeare and lenses through which you can see Shakespeare that are designed to actually provide clarity or a specific viewpoint that is more accessible to the language. And that was what the Mac Beth, the Macbeth that we did.
It offers a modernized specificity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, how, traveling it back to the two characters, why, maybe attempting to fill the hole is enough, but again, I go back to the thing that it's Lady M and not M. That, like, they're not both going, this is the way to fill the hole.
Yeah.
It's very much Lady M going, no, this is the way to fill the hole. And M going, okay. And then going, well, maybe not. And then going back to going, okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess
he's really torn. That's what's so great about playing M. Like, that's the real, like, when you get to really dig into that stuff, that it's that Hamlet moment, the like, I don't know what to do, this, or, and that's such a fun, I'm making up a word, gungy place to be in as an actor. It's just so squishy and fun to play in that mud.
And do you think that Lady M has certainty? In early, I
she thinks she does. I think she thinks she does. Yeah. I think that's part of the allure of Lady M and why she's able to get under his skin is that she acts with surety. That she acts with she's clearly so motivated. But also, I wanted to bring this up. There's a brilliant actor who I adore named Jacob Fischel. And he was doing like a Shakespeare intensive that I went to. And he talked about this idea of Shakespeare's lovers in the tragedies and the comedies and the problem plays, both being two halves of the same soul. And when one dies, the other has to die. And I think that is beautiful. And every time I've worked on a Shakespeare play since talking about that and learning about that, it's helped me so much in understanding some of the relationships between Shakespeare's lovers. That if they are two halves of the same soul, then like they're like everything that one does to the other or outside, like it all matters and it all affects the other person. There's no like me on my own making this decision. It's like it's always attached to the other person.
Yeah, well, that's and that's interesting then, especially in this play. I mean, this is getting further into the play, but that Macbeth starts pushing her away. And it starts saying, I'm not going to be with my other half. I'm not going to be, and that is sort of the beginning of Lady M's downfall, I guess.
And they both start to break from reality around the same time.
Yeah.
Like, they really are almost, like, there's some mirroring there that's happening.
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, I guess that you could, if we really wanted to get into the theoretical, is there's also, it's pretty clear in the text, in the scene that comes after this, which is the scene that comes after this is this a dagger? But the scene after that is the murder scene itself. Yeah. And we hear basically the famous "the sleep no more" line. Yeah. And it seems rather clear in the play that neither of these two sleep from the day that they've killed. So there's also the separation, like not just separation from their other half, but also the separation of their waking selves from their dreaming. Like they have literally lost pieces of themselves in committing a murder, which I think is interesting. Okay, so talk to me about Lady Macbeth's father, because she can't kill Duncan because he looks like her father, and that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
nowhere.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere, but it's also like it's these moments that like I think that Shakespeare gives us these moments to humanize Lady, because I think
Sure.
she could so easily be the villain of this story. She could so easily be the like puppet master extraordinaire, and I think that that's why Shakespeare's so brilliant. That's why we still do his stuff, and that's why I love doing his stuff. That it's so much more complicated, and he layers in these moments of like her relationship to her father and her thinking of Duncan as her father in that moment, and the baby, and the like it makes it so it makes it nearly impossible. Like you have to work against the text to make her a like villain,
Yeah.
and it's like that's just the stuff that he's layering in to make sure that you don't do that. That it's like this is a human being, and what he's exploring is a human being's capacity for evil given the right circumstances. But that doesn't mean that that human being is evil.
No, not at all. I mean, it seems to me like that's boring.
Right.
An evil person doing evil things is boring.
Yeah, which is why it was so great when because it's so much fun to play anger and power, and especially like how often as a woman do you get to play a character that just runs circles around the men, and it's really fun, and you can get a little bit carried away with it, to be honest.
Sure.
And so it was really, really great to have a director who could pull me back, even though sometimes I got real mad about it, and just be like, hey, no, and that was also another way in which the teenage girl was very useful, because I could always bring it back to this insecure teenager. I could always ground Lady by this very ungrounded, terrified teen person, and so that automatically would help keep from going too far in the mastermind puppeteer evil lady,
Yeah, no, I think going back to one of the primary points that you made is this idea of that anger and power and manipulation and all of that. It can anything is fair game when done in the name of love. And so as long as everything Macbeth, I find this the most interesting part of the play, is everything Macbeth and Lady M do for one another, at least the hamartia, at least the tragic fall, right? Yeah. Their tragic flaw to me is not ambition. Their tragic flaw is love, which is bonkers, right? Is their tragic... What?
I might fight you.
No, go for it. But what I mean by that is that I think when I read it, when I see it, it seems to me that what Lady Macbeth is doing is, which I think is what you said, correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, is she is trying to get Macbeth to be king, to fill the hole, to fill the vacuum of not having a child. Of not we failed to create a child. Let's create you king.
Yeah, I think that's the underneath boiling part of it. I think on top of it are a lot of other kind of law, oh, I'm also a woman in this society and I want some freaking power, and oh, and wouldn't it be great if my husband, there's this kind of there's the other stuff too. There's a lot of layers at work as far as why she's doing it. But yes, I think at its core, there is a gaping hole in this relationship that she's trying to fill.
Yeah, and I think that, so I guess then my point is that I don't think Macbeth, when I read Macbeth, he doesn't seem particularly ambitious. Macbeth seems to do this because Lady Macbeth wants him to. In a lot of ways, he does it for the same reason. They're doing it to fill a hole, and they're both doing it for the same reason. And then
why does he continue once she's
Yeah, so thank you for pushing back. I mean, I don't want this to become a character thing on Macbeth. I do think that there is another flaw. I don't, this is a particular rabbit hole, but I think Macbeth knows what the difference is between killing somebody in war and murder is. And I don't think Lady Macbeth did at the beginning of the play. So I think that Macbeth, that's where Macbeth's hesitancy comes from. And that's, I think, part of the reason why Lady Macbeth doesn't quite understand it. She's like, you do this for a living. Yeah. It's it's different. And I think that once Macbeth always saw it, he describes it that way, right? He describes it as jumping the life to come. He describes it as crossing a Rubicon. He sees it as an once that move has been made,
Right. He's crossed over a boundary that he can't ever go back.
Right. We are in blood stepped in so far that to return were as tedious as go war. We're done. So I think that that's why like his choice is a bigger choice than Lady Macbeth realizes it is when he makes it. Is he's making the decision to go this route. And it goes worse than he could have ever imagined, but he makes that full decision. Whereas I would question, and I mean again, push back if you disagree. I think Lady M's fantasy is we kill Duncan and we become we become king and queen. We're kind of done.
No, totally. I think it's quite simple in her mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I think that weirdly, even though Macbeth is not nearly as smart as nearly as intellectually
sharp,
he's not as sharp as Lady M. Let's be honest. He's not as sharp as Lady M. I think he does have sort of the warrior mentality knowledge that lets him know that once the line has been crossed from war to murder, that's a very hard breach to go back from.
Yeah.
And maybe one of his other great flaws is that he doesn't even try.
Yeah.
Is that basically once he's gone, he's gone.
Yeah, I think he's more well versed in the art of war and in death and life. Yeah, I think he definitely has a better understanding of what this can and will do to them. I think Lady is so. I think thinking ahead 10 moves is, in this instance, her weakness, because she's so busy thinking ahead 10 moves and where she's going to be in 10 moves that she's not thinking about like, oh, but this one move is going to change everything.
Yes. I think that's a really good way of putting it, right? Yeah, she's thinking 10 moves ahead in chess and not realizing that after the first move, we're not playing chess anymore.
Right. It's an entirely different game.
Yeah, and what you're saying makes me rethink one of the lines you say in this speech, which is, if we should fail, we fail.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of different versions of that. Some of the versions are written with an exclamation mark. Some are written with a question mark.
The Macbeth one or your... Oh, yes, the Lady M. The Lady M.
Lady M, the line, we fail. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is going on? I have a theory. What do you think is going on with that line? We fail. I only have a theory based on what you've just said.
For me, I just, I made that choice because it was more fun for me. It was more like, given all the different tactics that she uses in that scene, because it is like she is in a way playing a game of war in that scene.
Incredible. It's incredible.
She is, every single move she makes is so well crafted and so tactful, and she plays to his manhood, she plays to his courage, she plays to his ego, she also plays to his heart with the child. It's like she does everything. She hits every point. And so I think in that moment, she's trying to seduce him with her confidence and this kind of like, we're not gonna fail. Like this, like for him to be like, what if we fail? And she goes, we fail. Like there's no consequences. I thought it was so much fun, and also spoke to the teenager playing the role, that kind of ego. And when you're a teenager, you don't think about your humanity. You can't die. You're immortal.
There's actually a brain development thing about that. I'm such a
your
nerd.
brain isn't your frontal cortex or something isn't fully developed until you're like 25-ish or something.
Right. So you literally can't fully comprehend long-term consequences when you're a teenager.
Yeah. And so I kind of loved that for just be like, we fail. There's this kind of I just love that youthful whatever, and it felt right for that production. Now, would I make that choice when I'm playing a grown ass woman Macbeth? I don't know, but definitely for that production, it was the fun choice.
But what I was hearing based off what you were saying about this sort of for me, like what you said right at the beginning, it all goes back to the child, and we fail. Are we really so happy now? Right, what actually are we losing if we fail?
Right, we have nothing.
Right, right, that sort of feeling of distress. And I mean, I don't know where you fall. I feel like the loss of the child is quite recent.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes
certainly the juicier choice. Yeah, I think that it plays on them. I think that you could make a variety of choices around the child.
Sure.
Like, we've seen them all in all the films and the stage
Yes.
versions. Like, God knows this play has been done. It's a fair amount, but like, yeah, I agree. I do think that it's juicier to play if it's recent, if it happened like a month ago, you know?
Yeah, and what I find interesting about that is that if it happened a month ago, I don't think Macbeth knows until he enters in his first scene. Because wars back then took much longer. I always imagine that Macbeth has found out right before he enters in that first scene, and that first embrace of theirs is all about that before they move forward. And her like take my milk for gall is because this is just fucking happened. See, now I'm doing it too. You got me going with the swearing. But the I've always seen it as like this thing is on top of them. This particular loss is all over them in this moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I always try to think about like, why is this day different from all other days? Why did the witches show up to Macbeth when they did? Right? Is like probably because he's about to be in a position to be as vulnerable as he possibly could be to their machinations.
They built her. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, exactly. Do you think that, on that note, do you think that Lady Macbeth, or did you, when you were exploring her, do you think that she has an active interaction with the supernatural? I mean, that first speech, foul fiend, like that does seem very direct.
Yeah.
Did you have you ever explored or thought about like what is like, is she a, some people say, well, what is that famous Scottish sorceress? Like King Mordred, is it Mordred? King Arthur's aunt, or Morgaine?
Yeah, Morgaine is Morgaine's the witch. Yes, she's the one who.
Yeah, that some people think that Lady M is.
Version of the story you're talking about.
Yeah, the one who's the mother of Mordred, who is Arthur's half brother.
Yeah.
God. Her. Yes. Like, some people think that Lady M is semi-inspired by that character, which, like, whatever. But do you think that like Lady M has a connection with the supernatural, whatever that means?
Look, I think every woman has a connection to the supernatural. We bleed with the moon. Like, sorry, but that's sorry, not sorry. But like, you know, I think every person with a uterus has a connection to the moon. You know, like, we literally bleed with the moon, and there is something inherently witchy and awesome about that. And I think that there is absolutely, like, I think in one version of Erica's production, in like one of the earliest versions, one of the witches played Lady. It was like there were less actors in the show, but I do think, yes, there is an absolute tie. I think that is inherent in her, in that, I mean, in that monologue, in a very obvious way.
Yeah.
But I think throughout, like, there is her otherness. I think it's her otherness more than anything else in the play that connects her to the witches, because there aren't a lot of women in this play. There's so much violence, and there's all this like maleness in this play. And here you have this woman who's caught up in this whole crazy story, but in so many ways she's in charge of the story. But she is like, there is this kind of like otherness to her in that she is one of the only other women on the stage, like with the witches, and also that she is so in control in a world where all these men seem so out of control until it flips.
Yeah. Well, and that's always, that is, I feel like, is a through line in a lot of Shakespeare's female characters, is sort of these incredibly powerful women pushing against the artificial social boundaries that have been placed on them, sometimes to the point of their own tragedy, right? Like oftentimes, male society sort of wins in crushing, which is tragic.
Roasting Cressida is a similar situation where it's like, you have all this male toxicity and war and like so much of it. And then here's this woman who's just like tossed back and forth between these armies, and like this, it's horrific, and softness doesn't stand a chance. So of course Lady is going to harden, is going to become, in a way, like she's going to embrace more her inner masculine divine, because she's That's what it takes to survive in this world.
Yep, and of course the comedic versions of Rosalind and Viola do the same thing. They find their power, they find their voice, they're allowed to speak when they dress up as boys.
Yeah.
Right, like they, instead of being blasted by an overbearing uncle in court, Rosalind leaves and becomes empowered in finding her voice by being allowed to speak in a male-run society, right? Like that's
and I think Lady's doing the same thing through Macbeth. I think that she uses Macbeth with love and with, there are all these other things at play, but like she has to find her power through him. She in this world cannot do it on her own. She needs Macbeth.
Yeah, which I guess makes it even more tragic when he pushes her away. She gets him the throne and he pushes her away.
I think that's what breaks her. I honestly think that is the point where she's gone. Sorry,
what? Just to be clear, what's the pushing away, or the fact that she loses her voice?
Where when he pushes her away, there's that whole scene where like she confronts him about it. It's like, why aren't you talking to me? Like, right. And I think in her mind, like she really was. This is her 10 steps ahead, and she's at it, and it's miserable, and he shut her out, and like we did all of this, we went through all of that for what? Where are we? Like what has happened to our relationship? And when he closes the door fully on her, it just is like, I think that she snaps. There's this kind of like, it was all for nothing. Like here she was trying to build something, and everything is shattered. That's
really interesting to me because it does. I feel like it adds another layer to Outdam Spot. Outdam Spot is not just like her moral center coming and getting her, right? It's also like replaying it, trying to figure out what broke.
Yeah.
Like can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all the shit she's seeing, like it's all, yes, there's a part of her that is absolutely going back and being like, where did we go wrong? What happened?
Right.
It's like, you murdered someone, honey. Like, that's what happened.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's fascinating. It's interesting to me that I just keep going back to this, like, the powerful woman stuck in a society that doesn't allow power in women, and, like, the idea of someone like Lady M. The one thing that women were supposed to do back then was provide an heir.
Yeah.
And it was the thing she failed, this incredible dynamic human being failed to provide an heir. So she goes for something bigger. She goes, I can't make you an heir, but I can make you king. And like just, but that's what I mean about, like, I agree that of course there's ambition about how do I create more power for myself as a human, but that at its core,
I think it's for us. How do I create more power for us?
For us, and that is fundamentally out of love.
Yeah.
It's love. I mean, it's never one thing, right? Like, it's all, the cores are all what they are. It's
and
she's so sad.
And we also get to play with this in this production, the fact that it's all women. That like it's all just. I mean, it's one of the reasons why it was one of my favorite things I've ever had the privilege of working on, because I to this day, like, those women, like, we're still really tight, because doing that production was so physically, mentally, emotionally challenging that it created a kind, like, we were like, it felt like being on a sports team, to be honest. Like, it really did. It felt like we were on like a really badass like soccer team, and we're gonna kick some, or lacrosse, definitely lacrosse. This feels like lacrosse. Like, like those little girls, like those, what are they called? The lacrosse sticks. I don't do sports. And like they used to terrify me in high school. Like,
I just like that your verb. I like that your verb for sports is do. I don't do sports. That's great.
But like there was this like absolute sense within the cast of being this badass like sports team, and like we were like, we showed up in this grassy knoll to like put on this play, and we threw our entire selves into it, and it would kick our asses sometimes, and that was part of why it built such camaraderie, because it was a dangerous show. You have to be really, really sharp and really aware and really have each other's backs, because there's like metal piping everywhere and like different levels on it rains on us for like 7 minutes every day. So it's like slippery. I've never had a show be so demanding of me while at the same time that rewarding and that like uniting. Like not a single person wasn't on the same page.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting that life imitates art, art imitates life imitating art, and all of that stuff about that production of that, like what we were just discussing about women breaking out of their societal norms to get to play powerful or do violent things, even if that, and also seeing how that can end in tragedy, of like that it is true that like we didn't know the names of your schoolgirls, right? We only knew the names of the characters you were playing. But what we were seeing we were seeing 7 Rosalinds playing Macbeth, basically, right? We were seeing women get out a lot of things that they're not normally allowed to get out in playing, and that resonates inside the themes of the very play they're doing.
We got to be very impolite in that show.
Very impolite.
Very impolite. Not very ladylike.
No.
We got up to some pretty darn gross stuff. And I also think in a similar vein that what Erica was intending with the show, because there was, it was based off of these actual murders that had happened. But
don't give too much away.
Right. Thank you.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. But I think part of it was also like, I think we are so used to seeing men, particularly white men, commit violence in this culture and this world, that honestly, like, I think watching Macbeth, the violence in it has become a little anesthetized. We become a bit anesthetized to it, because there's a degree to which we expect violence from men, which is, we could have a whole other talk about that. But I think by casting women, young women, teenage girls in these roles and and they are serving up this violence, this male domination violence, that coming from these delicate, tiny 17-year-olds is incredibly shocking and horrific, because we're not accustomed to seeing that, because that's not what's expected of that group of people. That is completely like outside of the realm of what we see as that reality. And so by creating this new reality where like these are the people committing the violence, I think it brings the violence of Macbeth back into a world that it feels real again, and it feels urgent, and it feels scary. Because that was what was so cool, is I felt like our Macbeth was scary. Yeah. And that's hard to achieve in a day and age where we're like, we see all kinds of shit on television and film that's like, we're so anesthetized to violence. And like, I think that there was an investigation of violence in this production that made Macbeth scary again,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it would, I think you put your finger on what's sort of most striking about the production is that you're watching Macbeth, but you're also watching 7 young women.
Yes. I'm sorry, but one of my favorite moments in the play, and spoiler alert, this is a spoiler alert, it's not too, but like one of my favorite moments in the play was when Charlene Cruz, one of the most brilliant actresses, I love her so much, she would bring out a fucking bloody tampon. She'd pull it out, and like, it's in the thing, but she'd pull out this bloody tampon and stick it in the cauldron, and without fail, the whole audience would just lose their minds. And it's like, we live in a culture where we're more freaked out by a bloody tampon than murder. Like, right. It's nuts. Right. And it just was so satisfying as a woman to be on the stage where that got to happen. Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, it's interesting kind of what you're talking about, maybe from a less socially deep place and from more of an acting place, because I agree with you and I have nothing. Frankly, it's not my place to try to deepen what you just said. It's my place to hear that. But I also like remember thinking with that Macbeth that what it sort of most strongly accomplished was that you never knew what was going to happen. You always, there was, every time you thought that you had a handle on the play and on what you were watching, something happened that took you out of your comfort level as an audience member, which then forced you to listen harder.
Yeah.
And to watch harder and to care more. And that honestly masterful expectation management that happened at sort of every level, from the violence to the direction to the stage to
you're
the
taking
actors.
a play that we know very well.
Right.
That everyone knows very well. And by placing it in such different contexts, it creates a kind of dissonance.
Yeah.
Where like you have to listen differently, and you have to listen because it's none of it is the same.
Yeah. And I think that was what that, like, I really do think that it's kind of like that trope about auditions and about how quickly somebody knows if they are interested or not, which I actually think is a yucky trope. Yes. But that's why I describe it as a trope, not a truism. But it does sort of work with shows where, especially with a play that is that well known, in the first 5 minutes, if the audience is like, yeah, I know what this is.
Yeah.
That you're done. Like, what's the drama? And like, what was great about that play, and what has to happen in every production, no matter what the conceit, is you have to be completely true and honest to the spirit of the text while also being new and current and contemporary.
There's the rub.
There's the rub.
I think a lot of directors and a lot of people get caught up in just making it new.
Yes.
And that's where you get all kinds of wild shit.
Or they go the other way and they become totally traditional. Buck's Path is back. Did Erica suggest different themes or intentions from the Lord Tell production versus the Hunter production? A little bit of background here for people who are listening. That the Macbeth that we're discussing actually had a number of iterations, but after our production at Red Bull, it then got remounted at Hunter, which is the theater that Greg Mosher runs out of Hunter College. And Ismenia was in both productions.
Yeah, a couple of us were in both productions.
Yeah.
For some people, it like didn't work out schedule-wise, and did Erica suggest different themes or intentions from the Lord Tell production to the? It was less seeking out different themes or intentions, and more like we had different actors, so it changes stuff. It changed a lot in the production, actually, because even like the difference between having a young white woman play Macbeth versus having a young black woman play Macbeth was changed the play, I think, completely.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't want to go into that because I don't want to give any spoilers about the end. So, but yeah.
It's not an 8-minute conversation.
No,
that's
it's
all
not.
We got.
Not at all. No. That in itself, and just in the act of having, different actors, you're going to relate to each other differently. You're going to make different choices. Yeah.
I'm really glad you said that, because going back to the previous conversation, I do think that like the conversations we're having now I'm going to pitch why I think these types of conversations are important. Mm-hmm. Is that I do think that like what the production is that we did at Red Bull with you and with Erica directing was brilliant and accomplished this on multiple tiers. Yeah. I do think that the thing that makes every Macbeth surprising and new and interesting and relevant is trusting what we just talked about, which is finding the humanity of the characters and trusting that a new individual actor playing the humanity of the character will always be new and surprising if you trust that, right? Like, just like you said, is like, it can be exactly the same production and you put a new actor in and the play is new, as long as you're not trying to carbon copy, as long as you're not trying to make the conceit bigger than the reality of the play. Yeah. And that, like, just having somebody like you play Lady M, who is thinking about her humanity and why she makes every choice she makes in a way that makes sense to you, Ismenia, with everything that you bring. Mm-hmm. That will, by definition, be different, new, and surprising and fascinating compared to a different actor playing that same role. It just seems very hard to convince anybody to actually do shows that way. But
I mean, isn't that, you just described like acting? Like that's what we do, and like it is really fun to have to, like, if I'm listening as an actor, I'm gonna have to use different tactics to get to Isabel versus, like, it doesn't make sense to use to play everything the same. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, but I do think that sometimes we get a little spooked with Shakespeare. I think sometimes people get a little spooked with Shakespeare and they feel like it needs something different from, as you just said, acting.
Right.
It's just acting.
Right.
It's acting with beautiful...
Listening and reacting.
Yeah, listening and reacting with incredible lines to speak and incredible lines to hear.
Yeah, and I mean, you really do get given a roadmap, so it's like, that's why I get so mad when it's bad. It's just like, he gave you everything.
You and me both.
Like, come on.
Hopefully we probably have an audience who agrees with us. But the and we don't need to get into the roadmap. I was told that I would be yelled at if I went too hard into verse and stuff like that. It's a boring conversation anyway.
I faked that I like have no internet and Wi-Fi, just go away.
the only comment I do want to make about it is that this is the couple that uses stichomythia. What a gatekeeper!
Oh my god!
Word.
Yeah. Oh god! The Wi-Fi.
Gatekeepery. I take it back. It is the only. This is the couple that uses the most shared lines. Yeah. That, like, they really do pick up each other's thoughts.
And again, it goes back to that thing of like, there are two halves of the same soul, and I love that so much, because it just makes it that much harder for those actors playing those roles to just like use their ego and go off and do craft their own performance. That's the thing, you know, like, it's, you are two halves of the same soul. You have to be there. You have to like show up for each other, and you have to be game, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good, if any actor is watching this trying to figure out how to play Lady Macbeth, you have to show up for one another and you have to be game. Is pretty solid. It's funny how we go into deep specifics and then we come back out to that's exactly how acting works, right? Like, you write that whole big book of stuff and then you throw it out and you just listen to your partner and you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that end of a week where you think you suck and you're like, oh, what did I do? And then
only 1 week? I'd spend most of my life thinking, well, that's a different conversation. But yes, thank you all for listening. That is all the time we have today. Ismenia, thank you. This was a pleasure. I could talk acting, any Shakespeare character you want, all day long with you. You were amazing in this production, and you were such a wonderful guest today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. Truly a highlight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Bye. Thank you.
Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I'm your idiot, Nathan Winkelstein. Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to the Red Bull Theater Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your support helps us to bring you more captivating conversations and insights into the world of classic theater. To stay updated on our latest activities, follow us on social media, get on our mailing list, and visit www.redbulltheater.com, where you'll find an abundance of podcasts, readings, classes, seminars, productions, and more. Your support makes all of this possible, so please consider making a tax-deductible donation on our website to help us continue bringing classical theater to contemporary audiences. Until next time, thanks, and ever thanks.